This webinar was recorded for subrecipients of the Tennessee Strong Families Grant on November 4th, 2024. AIMHI Jenkins, Director of Learning and Development at AIMHI, Tennessee, was our subject matter expert presenter. The main objectives of the webinar were to develop an understanding of early childhood and infant mental health, recognize how nurturing relationships lead to better brain development, and identify tools caregivers can use to support strong social and emotional development. The slides and reference materials are posted on our webpage for your reference and review. All right, welcome to the UT SWARP's Tennessee Strong Families webinar on Infant Mental Health 101. My name is Brooke Blair. I'm the training specialist for the SWARP's Tennessee Strong Families support team, and we're thankful that everybody was able to join us today. We are going to record today's session, and then it will be posted to our website. And if you don't already have that site bookmarked, Chase is going to share that in the chat for your convenience in just a second. I'll also follow up with some materials from the presentation, and then of course our training evaluation and CEU information in an email this afternoon. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat so that we know who's joining us today. And then of course, if you have a question about the material or want to respond to a question as we move through the information today, please feel free to unmute yourself or put your question in the chat. Just a few housekeeping items. If you're attending today to receive the CEU, this program was approved by the National Association of Social Workers Tennessee chapter, and our provider number is 2024-0145 for one continuing ed unit. I'll put that in the chat for your reference in just a minute. If you do plan to receive the CEU credit, we request that you please keep your camera on if possible. And then if you have any connectivity issues during the training, please just let us know. Email us, or once you're able to rejoin, just send me a message via Zoom. After the webinar, I'll send out that attendance form and the post test that you'll need to complete. And then we need to receive that back within 5 business days, which would be November 11th, to receive that CEU credit. And then, of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to email our help desk or give us a call if you're having issues with that. So without further ado, today we're going to be learning about Infant Mental Health 101 from AIMHI Jenkins. AIMHI is the Director of Learning and Development for the Association of Infant Mental Health in Tennessee. She holds a Bachelor of Social Work and a Master of Education, both from the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. With over 30 years of experience working with children and their families, her work spans from providing direct services to developing training and program implementation at both the local and state level. Her passion lies in ensuring that all children and family have support and resources that they need to reach their full potential. And when she's not working, she enjoys spending time with her husband, kids and grandkids, or playing with her dogs. We're super excited to have AIMHI joining us today from AIMHI, so I'll go ahead and turn it over to her.
Thanks, Brooke. Good morning, everybody. It is Monday morning, and at least where I'm at, fall is in the air. I'm hoping that you're feeling some of this too. Was excited to get some fall sweaters out and start feeling little bit of that chill. So hopefully you're feeling it as well. So I'm hoping that as we go through today, that as I ask questions, as we have this opportunity to engage, and that you will come off mute and talk and share your thoughts and ideas. But if not, you will chat at least and give me your opinions, your thoughts, because it just makes it so much easier when we're interacting together. So I will go ahead and get us started. Our goals for today, as we talk about infant and early childhood mental health 101, is just to develop an understanding about what this is. Learn how these nurturing relationships lead to better brain development. I'm going to teach you a little bit about the brain, what it means for our littles, especially as those positive, healthy relationships happen with their caregivers, and then what kind of tools we need to be providing to support that strong social and emotional development in our youngest. And so I always like to start with the mission and vision statement of AIMHI Tennessee. And so if you're not familiar with who we are the Association of Infant Mental Health in Tennessee. And our job basically is to support the workforce. We do not provide direct service to children or families, but we support the workforce that does provide direct service to children and families. And so I like to share the mission and vision statement because I think it connects us all together in what we do. But our job really is to look at how we can support professionals through training, through resources, advocacy, whatever supports that are needed. We like to say we fill in gaps, that we want to make sure that whatever it is children and families need so that they can thrive, so that we can really have this healthy environment where everyone gets what they need to reach optimal development. And so we want to make sure that we are out there providing that to the professionals, to the caregivers, to everyone out in the field. And so that is our ultimate goal right there. And I'm proud of how we do that. But as we start talking about what infant and early childhood mental health is, I would love to hear your thoughts on what comes to mind when you hear the term infant and early childhood mental health. Attachment style, Melody says yes. What are other thoughts you have? Treating babies and caregivers, Katie. Yes, that's true. Behavior, development, absolutely. The developmental process, assessment. And infant and early childhood mental health is all of these things. You're absolutely right. But as we start talking about what it looks like and kind of break it down a little more, there's three concepts I really want to keep in mind that will help you. And the first is what we talk about and how we kind of gauge what an infant is. And so for the term infant and early childhood mental health, when we talk about that, we're actually looking at a child from birth to age 5. And so I know here on the screen it talks about children birth to age 3. This is the definition that was developed from 0 to 3, which is kind of our overarching expert in the field of all things little. But for us, in the last couple of years, we've changed that to birth to age 5. And so the definition they give of what infant and early childhood mental health is, it means that it's the developing capacity of the child to experience, regulate, and express their emotions, form those close and secure interpersonal relationships, and explore their environment and learn. And all of this is done within the context of their family, their community, and their culture. And the reason that we look at them kind of in that group from birth to 5 when we talk about infant and early childhood is because their development is dependent on having that stable caregiver, right? So everything that has to happen for them to grow and learn is dependent on having that person that's going to help provide those learning opportunities. They're not able to do many of these things on their own. And so that's how we kind of group that infant and early childhood when we think about what that is. And then when we think about development for our children, for our littles, we think about it in terms of social and emotional development. And so when we think social, that's where those early relationships really matter. For our littles, it's the capacity to have those really healthy attachments, those bonding moments. From the minute the infant is placed in the hands of a caregiver, whether it's that skin to skin, whether it's just in the hands, social development begins. They look up into someone's eyes and that eye gaze begins. So it's so important that we take that into consideration. We think about what it's telling that child from the moment that starts. And then we also want to think about the emotional development. And so that's the capacity to think about big emotions and how do we handle those and how do we regulate those and whose responsibility is it to be able to help little ones control those and how do adults help first off regulate our own emotions but help littles regulate theirs, right? We're going to talk about what that looks like here in a little bit. And then the third thing is that we want to think about all of this in terms of culture and what's important to the child. When you think about a child, you have to think about their family and the culture that surrounds them. And so an infant and early childhood mental health, it all comes together in the child's family and their culture. And so it's critical for us to have that sense of belonging for all children. So I'd love to start us off as soon as we talk about what we mean when we say infant and early childhood mental health, but then to get us going with this precious video of this little one. If you can watch this and not just smile yourself, I don't know, just watching his little face every time he hears that sound. But what are some of the things that you think is happening in this moment? I think it's like 8 or 9 seconds. It's not very long, but what are some positive things that are happening in that moment? And you can come off mute, Ian can speak, or you can chat. Caregiver smiling and offering positive physical interaction. Yes. Gentle touch, laughter. I like that, Faith. Bonding. Yep. Kimberly says positive interaction. Engaging interaction. Ashley, thank you. Yep. Laura has connection. Sonia says positive interaction with caregiver. The baby feels safe. Yeah, Drew, I like that. Absolutely. All of those are absolutely correct. And so this is just that playful learning opportunity, right? So she's doing a very simple and quick interaction where this baby, and it is a little boy, I'll tell you, he is having that moment that I make this noise and mama does something fun with me. And so she's doing the little boop, right? And I giggle and she does it again. And so he's learning that I'm valuable, right? I'm worthy, that every time that I need something or have this moment of making cute noises or whatever, that mom's going to respond to me. And so that's that serve and return interaction. And it's that safe, secure base for him to start to learn to to get his needs met, but also to build his mental health capacity. And so we are starting mental health building. We are starting those brain development, those neurons in his brain are starting to grow right here and right now. And so this is a key component of what infant and early childhood mental health is these little interactions that happen. And these can happen from the moment children are born, when we start talking back and forth to them, when they start looking at us, when they start gazing at us, when they start making those cooing noises and we make those back. It's so important for them to hear those. So as we think about infant and early childhood mental health, we have to think about our key tenets. And so these are kind of guiding principles that we need to keep in mind as we start working with caregivers who have children that we're going to be addressing. And so I want to break these three down, starting with the parent is the authority of the child. And so basically what that simply means is that most parents are going to parent as they were parented, or maybe in direct contrast of how they were parented. And so to give you an example of that, I don't know how many of you are parents, but I have caught myself at many times over the years when I've been bringing my children up to catch myself doing something or saying something, especially when one of my children is acting a little out there, to say something and stop myself and go, oh my gosh, those were my mother's words that just came out of my mouth. I'm turning into my mother, or excuse me, even turning into my father. But it simply means that we typically find ourselves parenting as we were parented. Often, it's simply because that's just the way that we know that's similar to us. That's those patterns that are built within us. However, there are some who had maybe a traumatic upbringing, and so they are going to parent their child in direct contrast of how they were parented. Maybe they felt like they were so harshly brought up that they're going to have to be really relaxed with their child or whatever. But we know that it's really a struggle that parents can't give an experience they never had. And so remembering that the parent is the authority on their child, that they get to decide how they're going to parent, obviously within reason. We don't allow, we don't just sit and say that they can abuse their children, but how they choose to parent their child is based on how they were brought up. And so it's going to make sense for them to make those decisions that way. It also lends itself to think about those angels and ghosts in the nursery. And all that simply means, I know that sounds a little ominous, but all that simply means is that the relationship that develops between an infant and a mother calls back to the mother's relationship as an infant with her mother. And so when you're working with a mother, and it's typically almost always a mother, but and her infant child, the factors that you can't see sometimes are just as important and just as impactful to how she's relating to her child as the factors you can see. And so there may be those protective factors playing in. There may be some history there that we don't know about, that we don't see. But those are the things that we need to think about when we're paying attention to a relationship between a mother and a child. That there's a lot going on that maybe we may not have all the information that we need. There may be angels or ghosts there in that nursery, and so before we start making assumptions or making judgment calls, to take into consideration that there's a relationship there maybe we're not aware of. And with that in mind, as adults, as professionals in the field, we want to take time to wait, watch, and wonder. And so I have found that observation is such a great tool because it gives us an opportunity to literally pause, right? To just sit back, practice the pause, and understand what's really going on. I have found over the years that when I work directly with families, I would go into a family's home and the parent might tell me what was happening, or maybe I had a referral and so something else was coming up, and I would be like, oh, I know what to do. I'm here to help. I've got this. But as I got a little more experienced and a little more knowledgeable, I suddenly learned that it behooves me to practice the pause, to sit back and find out exactly what's really going on, besides what anyone else has told me, but also giving that parent a chance to showcase what they can do and not making an assumption that I know what's best or that I know what this parent can do, but allowing the parent to show me by their own actions. And so sometimes I would be really surprised by what I could see. With that in mind, so when we think about those key tenets of infant and early childhood mental health, and how we think about, from the minute the baby's born, and all the relationships that matter, that make up that baby, D.W. Winnicott says, a baby alone does not exist. A baby can only be understood as part of a relationship. And so that's something in this field as we think about everything that we do is relational based. And that really hits home to me. And I when I first heard it, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't like that statement. I'm all about babies, but if we really want to understand babies and how to work with babies, we have to think about the relationship that baby has with the caregivers in their life and how we can have that positive impact on that relationship, because that's going to make the biggest impact on the child. So I'm going to shift us just from thinking about relationships, and we're going to still stay with relationships as a part of all of this, but I want to talk a little bit about brain development, because as we start forming those relationships, this is where we go with it. So we know that in the first 3 years of life, the child's brain is going to develop more in that time than at any other time in their life. It's going to grow more. It's going to obtain more, maintain more. And those relationships are what does it. And so children are born with neurons in their brain. And so these are those little things that are moving and kicking around and sending off all these brain waves. But every interaction we have with the child is either going to grow new neurons or it's going to enhance the neurons the child already has in the brain. And so every time we grow new neurons, we're building matter in the brain. And so there's the front part of the brain is called the prefrontal cortex. I'm going to show you a picture of the brain in a minute. But as we build matter, it just gets fuller and fuller. And when you think about the brain expanding in size, to me, that just says we're filling it up, right? We're putting all this good, rich knowledge and information in a child's brain. And so every back and forth interaction, every communication, when your child is still an infant and you're carrying them around in those really heavy infant seats and you're narrating everything you're doing, right? I'm constantly, oh, look, did you see that? Did you see that dog? That dog was sticking his tongue out. That dog loves you. Oh, did you pet the dog? Yes, you did. Every time we do that, we are building matter in our child's brain. And because we're doing that, that child is going to have a better chance at being successful when they start preschool, when they get to kindergarten, when they're in sixth grade, when they're 18 and graduating. Every single moment that we start with from those little bitty years is going to have an impact as this child gets older and does more in their life. So every engagement that you have gives a chance to have higher brain development, to have something positive that it's going to lead to. And so things like that skin to skin contact from the very beginning leads to positive brain development. Every time we feed that child a bottle, change their diaper, give them a bath, put them to bed, or play with them on tummy time. All of those connections and times to engage is going to lead to that positive brain development. Learn how to calm themselves down, where they feel reassured and that they are safe and in a secure space. This is when children start feeling their senses being stimulated, right? They start noticing things by hearing things, by seeing, and just all the senses are on high alert. So their gross and fine motor are developing over this time. Their language, they start not only using language, but they understand language, and their curiosity gets the better of them. So all of these things start happening simply because of these normal interactions that we have with them. We know the brain is a social organ, meaning it works best when it has the opportunity to connect and interact with others. And this was research that shows us this. And so, again, I'm going back to what I've just said, but every interaction that we have is going to build that really healthy brain matter. And here's where I'm going to show you it makes a big difference. So this is a, excuse me. So this is a slide that really, to me, has an impact on how I paid attention to what this early infant and early childhood mental health made a difference as far as these early connections, these early interactions meant. And so the brain on the left is that healthy brain. And if you can look at the front of it, kind of where the dark red is at the top, that's your prefrontal cortex up at the top. And where it's circled is where kind of we're focusing at. But this is a child that has had a lot of interaction, had people talking back and forth to them, a lot of just good attachment, good bonding, good early childhood experiences. And so you can see that those neurons that I talked about, they've been enhanced, they've grown, they've multiplied. This is a healthy brain. This is what we want to see in all of our children, right? That's that good, strong matter. The brain on the right is the one that is just heartbreaking, and that it's sad for us to even think about. But it is the brain of a child who was institutionalized shortly after in a Romanian orphanage. And so this child was deprived of a lot of that good interaction, probably did not have opportunities to bond, did not have much engagement with caregivers in their life, probably not with a lot of the other children as well. And so you can see just by looking at it in those front temporal lobes, the prefrontal cortex, we do not have a lot of activity going on. We're missing a lot of that matter. So those neurons, they're not enhanced, they're not multiplied. And so this child most likely is going to struggle when it comes time for kindergarten, when it comes time for, second grade, third grade. This child probably is going to have some delays in communication and in attention to task, those other activities that is children. It's really, to me, just because of circumstances, these two children are going to have very different futures. And there are things we can do for children that can change that from day one. And so these are the to me, this is the slide that really sums up what it is that we need to be focusing on when we think about how do we interact with our children and why it's so important. Above all else, I think about this brain on the right. I had someone ask me once, how old is a child before it's too late? When they saw this slide, before it's too late to reverse any damage. And at the time, I did not know, but I said, let me do some research and see. And so the best that I can find is that about the age of 9, if a child has been consistently neglected with that really good, rich bonding and attachment for all of that time, or the majority of that time, by about the age of 9, it is really hard to close that gap completely. And so, that is not a lot of time. And so we have got to do better in making sure that we are helping caregivers and families know about the importance of that early interaction and why it's so important to put our phones down, to make eye contact, and to be interacting back and forth with our littles. I'm going to show you a quick video clip. You may have seen it. It's gone around a few times, but
okay. They need to work on that, right? Yes. Okay. Did you understand it though? No. Okay. All right. Huh? Oh, no, not this one. This is the grand finale of this. Yeah, that's the last one. That's what I was wondering. I don't know what they're gonna do next season because they did some stuff this time. Exactly what I was thinking. Oh yeah. Right. Don't bring that in. You know what I'm saying? Don't do the same stuff. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah. Yeah. Like go somewhere else with that, but don't bring it here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's what I said. And then it was like, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, what in the world? But don't do it here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Really? I thought the same thing. We think a lot alike, huh? Oh, that's crazy. Right.
I adore that video. I'm sure most of you have probably heard some of that, but I adore that video. So, what are some things you noticed that this parent did during this little 1 minute and 25 seconds that was building connections with his son? Serve and return. Yep, Harry, you're right. Returning baby's motions, responding to his comments. Yes, Faith, talking, interacting. Laura said listen and respond. Brooke said reassurance in responding. Look at him smiling and laughing. Yep. Kimberly, bonding through communication. Yes. Giving immediate, not delayed responses. Fully engaged, facial expressions, change of tone throughout conversation. Yes, Morgan, absolutely. I love even then when his little boy did the kind of, the tushy wiggle, that the dad did the same thing. He really mimicked what his son was doing. And because of that, you saw his son continue that conversation. The video is actually much longer than that. That was a clip of it. That was just a small piece. But that was just such a beautiful example of what serve and return can look like. And so what would you say he's teaching his son to feel in that moment about himself? What do you think his son feels because of that? Value, absolutely. What else? Thing to talk with, absolutely, yes. Confidence, love, secure. Sure, yeah. A feeling of belonging. Uh-huh. Confidence, loved, yep. Anything else you can think of? So when we really think infant mental health, reassured, a sense of humor. I like that, Laura. Yeah. I love that dad did that with that sense of humor. He was hilarious. Um, when we're thinking infant mental health, I'm going to be honest here and go back to when I first started working with this job. So I've been with the Association of Infant Mental Health for 2 years. And before this job, I actually worked in the field of either early childhood education or early intervention and did it for around 30 years. So a lot of time working with families and their littles. And so I wasn't real familiar with infant mental health. I did have enough knowledge to know it is not babies on couches getting therapy. We've actually had people that ask that question, but I was really trying to work through. I need a really good visual in my head, a good understanding of what infant mental health is. And we talked about the relationships and we talked about the interaction, and I get that. But how do I really make this make sense so I can talk about it where I can really have people understand me? And to me, this is where it plays in. When children talk to us or communicate with us, when children communicate with us, and it can be in many different ways. And so for this little guy, it was through his jabbering and his hand and body motions, right? Sometimes it's through a look, sometimes it's through a gesture, sometimes it's through sound, sometimes it's through crying. The response they get tells them something about themselves. If they get a response that's fairly quick and is met with love or a like response, the child feels all those things you guys just said. They feel safe and confident and loved and valued and important and reassured. But if a child is ignored or neglected or put off, they're going to start to feel not important, and that there is no value to them, or that they're going to just start feeling like they don't matter. And that's when their mental health, their self-esteem, their sense of self starts to deteriorate. And so then I start thinking, well, our littles don't really have mental health issues, do they? But think of that 3-year-old child in a classroom that you've seen before, right? That never cries. And the classroom teacher may say, this is our sweetheart. He's just as good as gold. He never cries. Well, maybe he doesn't cry because nobody answered his cries. Maybe he doesn't feel like he's important enough to cry. And that's where it really started making connections with me. These children need to know that someone's going to respond to those communications they give us, even if it's not with words. That's how they start feeling valued and important. And so we've got to make sure that the people in their lives understand that we respond early and we respond in kind, and that we respond to them in the way that meets their needs. We think sometimes, I love this quote by Mother Teresa because it fits here. We think sometimes that poverty is only being hungry, naked, and homeless. The poverty of being unwanted, unloved, and uncared for is the greatest poverty. We must start in our own homes to remedy this kind of poverty. Obviously, children need food and shelter and clothing. I would never say that's not true. But they need to feel wanted and loved and cared for just as much. So just to continue that theme, those early experiences shape how they perceive themselves and how they perceive others. And based on that, that kind of gives them those tools. They start learning those tools on how to deal with their own emotions. And so if we are responding to them and we are giving them skills and teaching them how to respond to their emotions. So when they do cry, when they do get mad, when they are happy, and we give them tools to regulate their emotions or control impulses, that's called regulation. But children aren't born with that skill. They can't regulate or self-regulate on their own. So they rely on adults in their lives to help them by co-regulating. So to co-regulate, an adult in the child's life needs to come in and to work together to provide that warm, responsive relationship, kind of structure the environment around them so they feel safe, secure, and then teach or coach them some self-regulation skills. And so we're just kind of modeling for them, guiding them, showing them what it can look like. So I'm going to read you this scenario and give you a visual of what co-regulation looks like. I don't have a video, and so I wanted you to understand it in kind of a visual way. So this is a true story. Sally is feeding her infant Chloe when Sam comes in and wants his mommy to read him a book. Sally asks him to wait until she's done feeding Chloe, but Sam gets upset and throws his book and starts crying. Sally pats the couch beside her and tells Sam, "Remember how you like to be a bear? Come cuddle beside Mama Bear in this cave." So Sam, crawls up beside her and on the couch, and Sally pulls the blanket over Sam and starts patting his back. Sam is still crying, so Sally tells Sam that bears like to smell for honey. So can he sniff really big to see if he smells any? So Sam, and then she asks him to blow all the leaves out of his way while he keeps sniffing. So Sam's sniffing for honey and blowing leaves. Keep doing it, Sam. Smell for honey. Blow the leaves. Sam quits crying while Sally finishes feeding Chloe and puts her down. Sally tells Sam that Mama Bear needs a bear hug and wraps him in a big hug that lasts, and Sam smiles. Then Sally picks up the book and asks if they can read it together now. So what kind of ways did Sally provide that warm, responsive relationship? What are things she did that let Sam know she was there to provide a relationship for him? Answering questions, responding to his emotions, yes. Remembering what his request was, Good day, thanks. Even just not kind of brushing him aside and saying, "I'm busy." Yeah, Katie said attuned, Brooke said she didn't make him wait. Absolutely. Gave him a regulation tool. Kimberly said showing him how his feelings are valid. Morgan said didn't ignore him. Absolutely distracted him with something that engaged him. Made him stop thinking about crying. Structure through imagination story. Right. So what did she do to structure the environment? What was the things that helped structure the environment? Specific instructions, things a bear does. So Mama knew, Sally knew he might, this is her child. She knew he needed to feel close. Maybe that regulation of patting his back. So she got him, right, Brooke, she got him to be near her. And I don't know about you, but in every couch in my house, we have the blankets right behind us. They're on the back of every couch. So she pulled that blanket down, right, and put it over Sam and was patting him on the back. That's that structuring the environment. Let's find a soft, warm place that gives him kind of that cozy feeling he needs to calm down. Giving him tasks he likes, letting him feel close to his mom. Yeah. And then what did she do to teach him ways to co-regulate? Somebody mentioned it a minute ago, but let's think about that. Breathing in and out, Melody, yeah. But she didn't say we're just going to breathe in and out, right? So we're going to sniff for honey. Bears like honey, Sam. All right, and blow all the leaves away so we can find the honey. So trying to think on your feet. I know with little ones, you've got to be thinking fast. But yeah, Kimberly, giving him tasks to interact. Getting his mind off what he's upset about. Still being able to feed Chloe, to feed that baby, but getting Sam to find ways to calm down. Helping him do it on his own. So teaching him kind of that in and out. You're right, Laura. Her tone of voice probably helped as well. If Sally had gotten, oh my gosh, Sam, would you just stop? That might not have helped. Staying calm and engaged with him. A healthy mood to mimic. Morgan, very good. Yeah. This was actually a situation I witnessed in a home session one time. And so very calm mom. She was great at teaching her children how to co-regulate. And so I asked when I started doing this training if I could use her example, and she was happy to let me. So just a wonderful way to show how when children's emotions get really big, it's up to us as the adults to bring our calm to them, right? Not to join in their panic, but to bring them our calmness. And so this is just another way when we talk about that chance to interact and engage with our children, that we can do it even when they're dysregulated. And so from a young child's perspective, this is just something we like to share that helps remind us that when we do these things that are so important to littles, these are the emotions it evokes in them. And so when we praise them and encourage them to keep trying, they feel confident, right? When we have that warm, nurturing environment and cuddle them, they feel calm. And when we take care of their needs and hug them, they feel loved. When we give them routines and we cuddle and talk and sing, they feel secure. Children need to know that they are important in our lives. We need to make sure that they feel these emotions. And so as adults, as caregivers, as professionals who work with those caregivers, it's so important to make sure that we are making that eye contact, getting down with the children, letting them hear and see these things. Even on days when we're feeling a little dysregulated, we have to remember these children don't have the same skill set to be able to calm themselves down when their stress gets out of control. So as professionals, what can you do to support positive and infant and early childhood mental health? So first thing you can do is really understand what secure attachment means. And so it all goes back to from the very beginning. Children need to feel connected to their caregivers. There should be one or two people, typically those main and primary caregivers, that children are very attached to. And so making sure that we understand what that looks like and we help provide that for them. Make sure we focus on the secure, loving, and consistent relationships. Making sure that we model self-regulation. So trying our very best. I know this is easier said than done sometimes, especially, if you're in traffic or, you're in one of those situations that we can't always be perfect, but trying to model that self-regulation where we do the deep breathing, we calm ourselves down so that our littles see us do it and they can start learning these skills too. Identify the brain state our littles are in before responding. And so when children are in those moments of upset or crying or whatever's going on, really stopping and thinking about what's going on with them in this moment before we respond. And so that's taking that moment to practice the pause again here. Focusing on positive connections, making sure that we are connecting with people in our children's lives who are going to help provide those really good connections, that support, that advocacy, all those positive things that we need to know so that we can have good relationships. So let's break it down to how we make those connections in infancy. So with little bitties, watch for those cues. When you're feeding them, watch for that eye gaze. When you're diapering or rocking or soothing them, try and get them to look at you. Watch for those little sounds they make, those cooing noises. Serve and return. Give it back to them. Every time they make those noises, make it back. Try and get a back and forth dialogue going so they start responding back to you. It's so important in infancy to have that continuity of care and those consistent routines. Children thrive on that. And so nap times and feeding times should happen regularly on the same schedule. They should have those calming and safe environments. Children should feel calm in a place. And so thinking about the lighting and the environment that you have around them, do they feel safe in this space? Is it a lot of soft, snuggly places? And then rich sensory experiences. So they should have different opportunities to experience different sensory play. And then with our toddlers, and so these are the ones that are out there exploring and trying new things. So we want to meet their physical needs quickly. These are the children, if they're reaching for something and we don't meet that need quickly, they're going to try and get it on their own. And so we want to try and be there before they fall and hurt themselves. This is when we start labeling those emotions. When their face gets all red. Wow, your face is really red. Are you feeling mad right now? Being able to help them start to associate these feelings that they have with the emotion that goes with it. Narrating actions. Oh, I see that you're picking up your toys and putting them in the basket. Thank you. I like it when you're being a good helper. A lot of communication. I found myself narrating and talking nonstop when my child was a toddler. Our youngest daughter was born a little premature and so had some language delays, and the therapist told us we needed to use lots of language with her. I talked nonstop to that child at the grocery store, everywhere we went. We talked nonstop. Have environments with opportunities for movement and big play. You can see in this picture of this dad and child playing in the floor. When you have toddlers, having a space where you have preschoolers, they're really needing those warm and responsive interactions. Getting on the child's level. Make sure you come down to their level and make eye contact with them. Making sure that we don't expect them always looking up and that we don't always have our phone in front of our face. organize the environment thoughtfully for preschoolers. Really think about different spaces that give them a chance to try new things. Um, this is the age when you can have those conversations and ask questions, ask open-ended questions. So, how do you feel about that? Why do you think that happened? Tell me what happened today. And then again, start to really label their emotions and understand their temperament. And so children are not always going to be happy. We're not always happy. And so remind them that that's okay. Behaviors aren't okay, but emotions are okay. And then as we think about compassion and those connections, remember that compassion to others begins with kindness to ourselves. And so, as caregivers, I just always want to end with a reminder that you need to take care of yourself. You need to fill your bucket. It's just as important as anything you do for anybody else. So please make sure that you're taking that time to always take care of yourself and fill your own bucket. And then I've just put our QR code on here for you if you're interested. This goes straight to AIMHI Tennessee's website. We have all of our programs listed on there. On the training tab, we have all the trainings that we offer. We offer a minimum of 4 a month. We'd love to have you join us for some of our trainings. We also have an endorsement, which is our international credential for professionals who are already providing quality services. It's just kind of that acknowledgement that you know what you're doing out in the field, and we want to recognize that. And so we would love for you to be a part of that as well. And so this QR code will take you to all of those amazing places on our website. And I'm going to stop sharing because that's all. Whew. And I think I'm just about at the end of my time. So
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for presenting, Amy. And if anybody has any questions, we do have a few minutes left for you all to ask those.
quiet group. I'm hoping that's more because it's Monday and not anything else.
Something I was thinking about, Amy, as you were talking about the 9 years old, I had never heard the past 9. It's really difficult to kind of turn that around. I know a lot of these organizations are working with parents who may have kids in that like 5 to 9 range. Do you or AIMHI have any resources that they could use, to kind of support some of the kids in that situation?
I mean, that's a great question, Brooke, and that's something we need to work on. And this is recent to me to find this. When someone asked me during a training, just kind of caught me off guard. What's that age where it's too far past? And I was like, I really don't know. Our main focus is birth to 5, and so anything beyond that we're not as familiar with. And that's where all my work has been. But through our inclusion coordinator, we are working on some great research, just pulling it. And so that's something I think we're looking into, but there's nothing I have right now. But yeah, you're right, Melody. Occupational therapy can help. There's a lot of things that can help. And we say never give up on children. We don't want to say that there's no hope. It's just so much harder to lessen the gap, because there just comes a point it's so large, it's hard to get us back to where we need to be. And so we never ever give up, though. We say we will work. So
Totally. I just know that's something that's come up. We did an ACEs training. It's come up today. It's just like, okay, once we, have some of these kids, once they get older, like what are some, interventions to help them? So we'll keep looking into it and pull our resources, because like you said, we never want to give up, and it's never too late. So
absolutely. And that's why it's so important to know from day one. You've got to start making those connections, those interactions, and you've got to start telling the caregivers that, because I've heard so many early childhood educators and parents tell me they had no idea how important it was to talk to their children in that manner from a very early age. So if we can get that word out, I think we can start shifting this dialogue, and this trajectory.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much, Amy, for presenting on this important topic and for joining us today and just for allowing space for us to share and collaborate. And thank you for everybody else who was able to attend and for your contributions to our conversation today. So once I get this posted to our YouTube channel, it will go on the website very soon. And then, like I said, I will follow up with an email to everyone this afternoon with some slides and some other information in our training evaluation. And so we hope everyone has a great day. If you have any other specific questions, call or email our help desk. We hope everyone has an awesome week. We'll see you soon.